joining us tonight. I do see a few familiar faces from previous workshops, so thank you for joining again. Today, we're going to build on some of the things that we've already discussed if you've been to some of the other workshops, but this is its own separate topic, so no worries if you haven't attended. We're going to be talking about networking. It's one of my favorite topics. As Melanie said, I have a lot of experience, probably more than I care to admit sometimes, in HR, as talent acquisition for a lot of different kinds of organizations. I've recruited anywhere from intern all the way up to the C-level and everything in between. And I notice a lot of themes that I think come through. And one piece I've seen quite a bit is the power of networking. And I think even that word sometimes people just they don't love it. They don't love to think about networking because I think it conjures up an image in their heads of going to an uncomfortable networking event where you don't know anyone and you're just having to build a very quick relationship and it can feel
Hey,
uncomfortable. But I'm here today to really help you discover how to really use a relationship based approach and have more fun because
hey, you want to sit and read the book? Come
oh, and
on,
if someone,
come
if
on.
I'm
If
correct,
someone, if
maybe
someone is, just ask everybody to make sure that they're on mute, all right? Thank you so very much. Sorry about that, Sarah.
that's okay, no problem. So we're going to dive in deeper a little bit more about how networking works and why it's effective to just give you a little more motivation if it's something that is something that you haven't incorporated, whether it's in a job search that you're doing right now, or if you are even currently working, how to make sure that you're implementing it day to day in your current organization to help you continue moving forward. So with that, I just want to share a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So, why networking is essential throughout your career and job search, and throughout your career, and really just thinking about professional development opportunities. And then really about using a relationship based networking approach and why that's the most effective and how to incorporate that into something. So hopefully you'll walk away today with some tactical tips and tricks that I have found for people to be really successful in their job search. And I don't know if anyone is in their job search right now, but it can be frustrating to send out application after application and feel like you're not hearing back. I think it's still important to go the application route because you don't want to miss out on those jobs that are being posted. But the networking is really, in my opinion, the thing that helps you gain the most traction. So I always think I just always envision like a truck stuck in mud, and the networking being the piece that really propels you forward. So that's what I want, hopefully, for you to envision. And as you start implementing some of these tactics, hopefully you'll feel that as well. So I just shared a little bit of what we're doing today, so I don't want to walk away or go through every single piece of this. I do want to highlight, Melanie mentioned this as well, that we are going to do a couple pair and share breakout room activities. And that's really for you to start to put into practice some of these things, because again, some of this is just if you're not doing it already, or if you are, maybe just refining some of the practices to help you gain the most traction in your search. So here's maybe some motivation. Maybe some of you have seen some of these figures. I think to me, they're always astounding, but I can tell you being in talent acquisition that this does ring true. Some of it might be slightly inflated. It really just depends on the organization and the job. But I do that 85% of jobs are filled through networking. I think that is, if it's not exactly 85%, it's probably pretty close. And we'll talk about what that means. I use the term hidden job market, and I stay in touch with a lot of current recruiters, people, former colleagues of mine, or just in my network. And some people will say there's a myth around the hidden job market. I still think exists, though jobs often are posted. So that might not be completely hidden, but I'll tell you why it makes sense to use that networking piece, even if a job is posted. This piece, 70% of jobs are never published publicly. This can absolutely happen, especially in smaller organizations that maybe don't have to post their jobs. If you think of an organization that maybe just has 10 or 20 or 30 people, if they know that they're going to have a job opening, they might not go ahead and post it. That's a lot of work to go through a whole screening process. And if you know of someone who might have that skill set or someone's referred to you, and you interview them, you might not even have to go through the posting process. So this absolutely rings true for smaller organizations. But then in those larger organizations, if they know that they might have someone internal or a referral, they may have to post them for a short period of time just to make sure they're doing everything that they need to do legally, but they may already have people in mind. So, and if you're currently employed, the reason that networking is so important is having those regular coffee chats. I'm a big fan of the virtual coffee chat, and I've seen a lot of people, they're very comfortable with having a 15, 20-minute coffee chat. And even if you're in your current organization, I do think it's vital to do these kinds of chats because, again, you never know what leadership is talking about. Somebody could have just given notice, someone else is being promoted and that job will be open. So often there are jobs being discussed today that are not going to officially be posted for a month or 3 or even 6 months. And if you can get top of mind, that's just a good thing to be doing, even if you are currently employed and want to stay at that organization. So hopefully those numbers serve as a little motivation to help you understand why networking is important. Here are just some metrics. I do want to call out, there's been a lot of discussion on LinkedIn specifically with other people about that LinkedIn number. Sometimes you will see, oh, so-and-so, this many amount of people have applied for this position already. So you might see like business analyst, 500 people have already applied. I don't know if that is always accurate. And I have heard people who are currently working as recruiters say sometimes it's the click. So they might click on that and then it shows as an application, even if they don't complete the application. And also those people might not be qualified. So don't be thrown off of that number. I know some people get really, if they see, oh gosh, 200 people already applied, there's no way they'll look at my application. Don't let that deter you. But I do want to take you through some metrics that are pretty common. So 1,000 people will probably see a job post, and then about 10% will complete the application process. So they actually will go through the entire application and submit. And then of those, about 3/4 are probably screened out by the applicant tracking system. And it's not to say that they're reading all of this AI, it's just some people are just not going to meet the minimum qualifications, or I should say ATS or the recruiter. So quickly kind of seeing like, oh, this person's not, they have only 5 years of experience and we really need 15, things like that. So then about 25 resumes are going to be in that target. They're going to say, these are people who are probably going to be a great fit. And then about 5 to 10 candidates will be selected by the hiring team to be phone screened. And those, depending on the company and how they work, it'll either be the recruiter, sometimes it's the hiring manager, could be someone else on the team just selected to chair a hiring committee. But ultimately, they probably will not screen more than 10 people. And then of those, just the numbers, probably a lot of you have been through the interview process, maybe some of you hiring managers. So about maybe 5 to 7 at the most will be invited in for first round interviews, usually 2 to 3 for final round interviews. It's very rare that they're going to want more than 3 candidates for that final round. Obviously, one candidate's offered the position. If they accept, it's done. Usually they'll keep a backup candidate. But know if you're in that final round or even in that 5 to 7 candidates, you've already made a great impression on that company. And that's a great way for you to stay in touch with that organization. So even if that position wasn't the right fit for whatever reason, you could still be a candidate going forward and to keep that network alive. So any questions on some of these metrics? I'm sure some of you are pretty familiar with some of these. Okay, we're going to jump into some networking. So I wanted to just give some context as to why it's important. I do want to go back to this hidden job market piece before we jump into what I call the 3 circles of networking. So the hidden job market is thinking about the fact that there are jobs today being talked about that are not posted, or they're just a glimmer in someone's mind that, hey, I think we might need a project manager, or maybe we need someone to run this division. And so if you're having these networking conversations now, and that job is just being talked about, but it's not yet posted, and maybe they can't share that with you, that's something that I think really helps people gain some traction, because if you're able to really make a great impression and keep that conversation alive, they're going to think of you. And then when you do see that posting, you can quickly follow up and say, oh, I applied for this. Remember, we had this great conversation. I'm really interested. You're already probably on the short list. Or they may even reach out to you and say, hey, we're posting this position that's going to open in the next week or so. Keep an eye out. And if you're interested, go ahead and apply and you can put my name. So then you're a referral, which will automatically bump you up. I can tell you when I have been in recruiting that if someone's a referral, I always at least looked at their resume at the very least. And usually if they were qualified and it made sense, then I would at least have a phone screen. So that's just a great way in the door. So again, that's why that networking piece is really important, and it's going to pay it forward. It takes time, so it might not pay off tomorrow, but it will pay off over a month or a few months. Okay. All right, we're going to jump into what I call the 3 circles of networking. And I like thinking about networking in circles because everyone wants to get to that 3rd bucket, and people feel like they need to start there. So they feel like, gosh, I need to be networking with that person who has the job open. And that can feel intimidating. Someone you've never met, someone who has a lot of power, and someone who you really focus on impressing. The reality is you don't need to start with 3. If you spend your time in the 1st and 2nd circles, you're going to naturally get to 3 and probably even have maybe an introduction, a very warm introduction. So what I recommend in that 1st circle is thinking about who is already in your network. They may already know that you're in the job search or what you do, what you might be interested in. But if you haven't done this, I do recommend just taking a piece of paper or open up a Word document on your computer right now and start thinking. We are going to include, I think, is it already in the chat, the networking worksheet. So we have a worksheet to assist with this. But this is something where these are the easiest people to connect with. So these are your friends. These are maybe former colleagues who you loved working with. This is maybe a former manager who you had a great relationship with. It's your neighbors, former classmates, whoever it might be, even relatives. And just let them know, hey, this is who I am in my career. This is what I'm looking for. I am looking for a job. And here are the kinds of roles that I'm interested, but I'm pretty open. So they may have suggestions for you as well. And I highly recommend, I have a few templates you can use for connection requests for LinkedIn or emails, but I highly recommend you do formalize this a bit because everyone's busy with their own life and they may not remember you just having a 10-second conversation saying, hey, I'm starting to look for opportunities. So you may want to follow up with a text or an email. And it can feel a little odd if you're thinking about, especially if it's a neighbor, but if it's a neighbor who works at an organization that you're excited about or in an industry that you think could be adjacent or in your industry, it is important to just make that connection. And generally, I have truly found that most people are very helpful and they want to help people. And if they can, they will. And even if they can't, they might think of someone who can. So really starting with this 1st circle is the easiest. It's the low risk. And by the way, you're probably going to have a lot of fun with these connections. So think about that former colleague, someone you worked with that you used to grab lunch with once a week, reconnecting with them, making them aware of what you're doing now, where you're looking to go. I guarantee they'll be excited to help you. So just kind of make that list. Then the second list, the 2nd circle, these are your connectors. So these are the people that you know, they may not have the jobs, but these are the people, they're the super connectors in your life. So we all know these people. They seem to just know everyone. They always, when you're talking to them about something like, oh, you should talk to so-and-so, even if it's just about planning a party or, going to a restaurant, they just kind of have those connections. So really think about this 2nd bucket. And by the way, these, again, people are usually very interested in connecting with people and they'll be interested in connecting with you. If you're drawing a blank on who your 2nd circle could include, I want you to take a step back and think about maybe it's going all the way back to faculty or professors. If you got an advanced degree or even in your bachelor's, someone who's really involved in the field that you're currently in. It could be professional association members. If anyone here is part of a professional association, you could reach out to those people on LinkedIn. And again, we'll talk a little bit about how to do that. It could be alumni at one of the schools that you've attended. If you attended a school or a program, and just making that connection. Like we haven't personally met, but I see we have a lot of common connections. We share, the same kind of work experience. And I see you work for XYZ organization. I'd be really interested to hear how you enjoy working there. And that can be a connection. If you're spending a lot of time in these two circles, you will eventually get to that third circle. It'll happen organically, it'll happen naturally. You can also build into this third circle. The challenge is, since you don't know them and you might be reaching out because they have a job open, they might be pretty busy and they might not get back to you right away. So I think it's worth spending time in that third circle, especially if you see a job that you're really excited about and it's clear who the hiring manager is, or you just have a target organization. So I want to call attention to the chat where we have that worksheet. And I don't know if I pull it up, if it's going to share on the screen. Oh, it probably won't. So I'm not going to go ahead and share it, but I do want all of you to just take a look at that. If you have any issues pulling that up, let me know. But that has an exercise to take you through, so you can just do a little time and spend some time and develop your list. Okay. All right. So growing your network. I have a woman who I work closely with, and she always uses this term, and I find it to be really funny, but I find it to be really true. And she always says, your network is your net worth. And it's a little cheesy, but it's true. And it is, in this day and age, it still is about who you know. It's also about your qualifications and your skills. But it will help if you spend a little time working your network and growing your network. So if you're coming up with not as many, in that first or second bucket, those circles, really spend some time growing your network. You can become active in professional associations. Alumni associations are fantastic. Usually there's a chapter in most cities, and different clubs, even within your neighborhood. Just a volunteer maybe interest that you have. Most likely there are other people who work in different kinds of organizations and kinds of roles. So these are some easy ways to grow your network without feeling like you're asking for a job. You're, again, forming those relationships. So we will talk a little bit more about how to have some of that relationship-based approach as you do some of the outreach. But Melanie and Marissa, if you're okay with moving people into the breakout rooms, what we're going to do in the breakout rooms is I'd love for everyone to take a little time thinking about who are in those first and second circles. And you can use the worksheet as a guide. And I'd love for you all to pair and share, and just also in the spirit of networking, meet someone new tonight, and take about, what do you think, Melanie, about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 5 to 8 minutes?
Sure. I think that would be lovely. I'm going to go ahead, just to confirm, you probably wanted about 2 to 3, maybe 4 people max in breakout rooms.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Does anybody have any questions before we head into breakout rooms for Sarah? No? All right. What I'd encourage you guys to do is, when you go into breakout rooms, please turn on your video if you feel comfortable and in a place and have a connection that'll allow that in terms of bandwidth. And please come off mute so you guys can share. I will definitely send a note out to everybody in breakout rooms when you've got a minute or 2 left before we will come back to the main group. All right. Okay. And then, just so everybody knows, Sarah, what is it? People sometimes always chime in. What exactly is the assignment for the breakout rooms? Just to repeat that for everybody really quickly.
Thank you, Melanie. So we have the worksheet is in the chat, so you can use that as a guide. And just going through that 3-circle model, that framework, think about who are the people, and there's a list. It'll list like your relatives, former classmates, former colleagues. So that's a guide for you to brainstorm. But I'd like for you to think about in those circles framework. So who's in your first circle, those easy conversations? Then who's in your second circle? Who is a potential connector? Maybe you're not in touch with them very frequently, or haven't worked with them in a company, but you think you would have a great connection and be able to connect to other people. You could also think about who's in that third circle, but use that worksheet as a guide, and then think about the 3-circle framework.
Wonderful. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move everybody into breakout rooms right now. Everybody enjoy. And if anybody needs anything, just holler. All right. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and hit pause on the recording.
Okay. How did that go for everyone? Is anyone open to sharing any takeaways or wins as you kind of think about your networking circles? If not, that's okay. Or we could also put it in the
We
chat.
took more time introducing ourselves, and so now we all know each other, and we've gotten in our group one person mentioned that one of their circles was at church, which is a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or where you worship. I mean,
that's right. Thank you, Annette. Yeah, and then we could do just in the spirit of us all learning from each other tonight, feel free to type something in the chat if you'd like. So just a takeaway that you learned, or if you have, as you're thinking about where your circles may exist, if you want to share anything there. So we'll keep going because we do want to make the most of our time. I want everyone to walk away tonight with a few tactical ways to network, because I think one piece of networking is getting comfortable and having motivation and really understanding why you should be doing networking, which hopefully the first portion of what we discussed today helps everyone understand why it's important, and kind of really it's a numbers game, and it's also a timing game. And I have talked with plenty of people who they get laid off, or they decide to leave a job for whatever reason, and they expect to be able to jump back into something really quickly, and that doesn't always happen. So I do think that networking piece is good for a couple of reasons. It really does help to speed things up, but it also really helps you not get to a place where you feel like your resume is going in a black hole and you're just like wondering, hello, is anyone out there? It's motivating, and to be able to talk to people. So it also helps with the morale during job searching, which I know can be challenging. So, but I do also want you to walk away with some tactical things. So I'm going to pull up LinkedIn in just a moment. And I know most of you are probably very familiar with LinkedIn, but I also recognize that some of you may not be. Additionally, I have just a couple tips and tricks of how to find people and how to really be comfortable with reaching out to people on LinkedIn. So please feel free to raise your hand or take yourself off mute if you have any questions. We'll try to do a good job of answering questions. Other ways to network: informational interviews. I prefer to call them virtual coffee chats, because some people can be a little leery of doing a very, even though you're calling it information interview, it has the interview word in there. So someone from an organization might be like, well, we don't really have any positions open. So I think virtual coffee chat is a better term for that, but we'll talk a little bit about why to do those. And then I do have some good templates for sending messages out and some good questions to ask. So first, I want to take you through LinkedIn. So, and feel free, if as I'm talking, if you want to pull LinkedIn up on your laptop or computer or your phone, please feel free. But I'm going to take you through a few things. So as you're developing your circles, your first, second, and third degrees connections in your circles, another thing that I have found to be extremely helpful is having a target list. And I recommend having your target list of the people. And so you can build out from the circles, put those people on an Excel spreadsheet, just super basic, doesn't have to be fancy. But if you're in a job search, or even just as you're thinking about where do I want to go next in my organization, approaching it like a project. It'll motivate you, it'll keep track of your efforts, and it'll also help you see the momentum. So one piece is the people. So those are your target network people. And then the second piece, and this could be a different tab, could be your target organizations. Okay. And really kind of understanding where your career pathways are taking you. So I'm just going to use something, we'll just use like a big organization. So let's say you wanted to go into PR, public relations. Edelman is a very big public relations company. They are global, based in New York. So if you thought, well, gosh, I really would love to work at Edelman, but I don't know anyone off the top of my head who works there, one thing you can do is follow the company. So you'll see updates for them. The other thing is there's this tab over here, and you would go to people. And there's a couple ways that you can search. If you're wanting to use an alumni connection, so I went to University of Illinois, so I could type in University of Illinois. Now, I'm not going to put in at Urbana-Champaign, and there's a couple different campuses, but we'll just start here. So I just typed that in as a filter, and 93 people are showing up. Now, you may have to also, you're going to have to sift through and understand which part of the business. I'm probably going to be connected with a lot of HR people because that's my network. Let's just say I said, well, even though I like PR, maybe I want to go into HR now. So we'll just pull up one of these people. And I'm looking through, I don't see any first degree connections. That's okay. So I'm going to go to, let's just say, well, this person looks good. They're Senior Vice President, Global People Partner. Let's look at Dana. So I can see a little bit about her background. And then I would go down and confirm, did this person go to University of Illinois or did they just have it somewhere? They may just have it somewhere. It says Western Illinois, that's fine. But ideally it would have your, so you could have that connection. Let's just say that Dana did go to the college that I went to, but I still don't know her. The way that you're going to do this, if I decided, yes, Dana is someone I want to try to reach out to, you on your computer or laptop, if you hit, some of you may be familiar with this, but some of you may not, so I want to show you. If you hit the connect button on your computer or laptop, it's automatically going to pop up and give you this personalize your invitation. I always recommend personalize your invitation. You only get a few per month unless you choose to have premium for LinkedIn, which I never recommend that people spend extra money on the job search, but if you are going to spend a little bit of money, LinkedIn Premium is a good option because you can message people even if you're not connected to them, and you can send invitations to people even if they're pretty far outside of your network. So if your network's small on LinkedIn, that could be an option, but it's something that you do have to pay for. It's you could do like I think a 1 month or a 6 month subscription, but you should get 5 free invitations each month to personalize. And I'll show you some templates. You get 200 characters, so it takes you a little bit of time. I would just say something like that. Hi, Dana. I'm going to just use our mascot, Illini. And then I would say, I might also connect on the HR piece. I probably would go that route too. So you vary your words, but we are both. This is the ask. So it's, would you be open to a virtual coffee chat? Now, not everyone is going to be open to that. And by the way, I'm already at 198, so I don't have time. So I'd probably cut a word or two out and I'd sign my name, but then I'd send it off. So she has the option to accept my connection request. If she'll see my message in the connection request, but then if she accepts it, it'll show as a message. And then she has the option to say, sure, I'd love to connect. And when do you have some time available? Or she might accept my connection request and not respond. But again, it's a numbers game. So if you send out 10 of these messages tomorrow to people where you have an authentic connection and it makes sense, I think you would probably hear back from about 3 people. Okay. And that's pretty good considering you might not know these people. I'm not going to send this, but that's an example. So I don't know if anyone has any questions there, but I like to show this to people because a lot of times people feel that I don't know them on LinkedIn. I can't even connect with them. Yes, you can, and personalize the invite. I do want to let you know that if you're on your mobile, if you hit connect right away, it's going to send the invitation without giving you the option to send the personalized connection request. So there's the ellipses, the 3 little dots next to these little fields. So you would just click on those 3 little dots and then a drop-down menu appears and then you can personalize the invite from on your mobile device. Okay. So those are just, I think this is incredibly just so fantastic and people do respond. Not everyone, and people are busy. So you do have to send a number to keep going. I do also want to let you know that if you send out 50 messages tomorrow, LinkedIn may restrict your account. I just had a student tell me that her account was restricted because she sent out like 50, and I think she sent out like 50 in one day and 50 the next. So LinkedIn's like, "Ooh, is this a bot?" And we have to restrict their access. She finally got it back. So just be thoughtful. And also, you want to connect with some people that you really think are going to accept your connection request, because if too many people say, "No, I don't know this person," it's going to be harder for you to connect. So LinkedIn does have its algorithms, but it's a very powerful tool. Any questions?
Yeah, Sarah, there's one question in the chat that Mary, thanks. Hi, Mary. I'm glad you could join us tonight. That she threw in the chat. I wanted to make you aware of it.
Yeah.
Her question says, what do you define as a quote authentic connection when reaching out to someone?
Okay. There are going to be people on LinkedIn who are trying to sell something to everyone, so don't, if they cast a wide net and they're just throwing it out to anyone who will listen. If you are in a job search, or you're just genuinely, even if you're not in a search right now, but you're just genuinely looking to grow your network, if you are in a similar field to this individual, if you have a connection, like even the area, if you're local, like if you're in the Chicago area and they have a background that's somewhat similar and you want to connect, maybe they're where you want to go. Maybe they're 5-10 years ahead, and you're thinking, gosh, that's kind of where I want to be in 5 years. How did you get there? The same college, if it could be a common alum from a college that you went to, could be, an organization, even if the two of you didn't work together at the same organization at the same time, but you both worked at an organization at some point in your past. So that's what I would define. But people are generally helpful. And if you did want to go into PR and you wanted to connect with someone at Edelman, and you just very authentically said, I have a PR background, I'm looking for a new opportunity, and I'm really excited about Edelman. It's a target organization of mine. I'd love to hear how you got to where you are today. People generally are open to responding. And the reality is, again, not everyone will respond, but that's why you need to send out enough within reason to get a response. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? The other thing you can do is, most of you probably know, but there's a lot of ways to search for jobs on LinkedIn. So you could look for different jobs, and you could put a title skill. So again, we'll use like public relations as an example. And if then you'll start getting some different jobs. So this might also give you some brainstorming ideas. Maybe you weren't thinking about some of these organizations, but you're like, oh, maybe this brand at this account executive role, maybe that's something. Then it gives you some new ideas of companies. If you see a job and you're like, gosh, this company looks interesting, then you can go to the company page and again, see who works there, see if you know anyone. It doesn't look like it's very big, it's pretty small. So then you can go to the people and then down here, and you can just see, gosh, okay, maybe they're a small organization, but it's an account executive. Maybe I would go just straight to a co-founder and maybe message Seth and just say, I saw this great role. I'm really interested in it. I just applied. If you have some time, I'd love to connect with you. And then at least your name is out there. They might not respond, but they might say, oh, so-and-so reached out, check and see if they applied. So that's another way. If you see jobs that are posted, you can kind of go around and try to get into the person who might be the hiring manager or someone who knows something about the job. Okay, so those are 2 ways on LinkedIn that I find to be really effective. Any other questions? No?
Sarah, we did have one question from, Annette had a quick question for you. She said, I listed that I was open to new opportunities and got spam messages.
Oh, yeah.
Any explanation as to why that happens or how to avoid that?
Well, you could do a couple of things. When you list that you're open to opportunities, you could just say you're open to showing recruiters that you're open to new opportunities. So it won't be broadcast to the entire world. I don't think you'll have that little green banner. So you could take that off. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's why, like, those extra messages, that's why it's annoying for people sometimes, because they're like, I'm getting 20 messages a day. They have nothing to do with anything. that I'm interested in. So then people sometimes ignore it. But I would probably recommend taking that off if you feel like you're getting too many messages, and just do the open to recruiters so they know that you're open. Because what happens on the other side, as a recruiter, they can see, like, if they put in people who are in the Chicago area who have a sales background, 10 plus years of experience, they're going to get a whole group of people. And if they want to see the people who are open to new opportunities, they can click on a little tab and it'll show those people, because those people are probably more motivated job seekers. So sometimes they do that.
That's great, Sarah. We've got 2 other questions. Are you okay if I throw those out right now?
Yes, please.
One other question was, do you have tips for those of us who might be a bit more on the shy side?
Mm. Well, I'd say start with, like, really go back to that authentic connection, because then if the people do respond that they're open to having a call, that conversation will probably go smoother. So maybe it's a former colleague, and maybe you don't have their email address. So I would probably try to start with someone you're probably a little more comfortable with, or someone whose background is really close to yours, and at least start the conversation there, because then you're going to have a lot of good things in common to have that conversation. But I would just give it a shot, just give it a try. You're gonna, and again, send out more than one message, because if that person doesn't get back to you, you might feel disappointed, but the reality is they just might be busy. So I would try to send out at least like 3 to 5 messages and just try to give it a shot.
Sarah, one other tidbit that if I can share that I heard on a workshop recently around the same topic was, and I thought this was quite clever, really to address this question from Kathleen, is to consider taking a wingman or a wingwoman to that next event. So if there is a networking event that you're considering going to, but showing up at an event, small or large, showing up by yourself, sometimes may be a bit intimidating to some of us. But if you take a friend, that can sort of help start a conversation, almost as kind of like a security blanket, right? Having somebody there that's a friendly to help with those conversations, I thought was a really clever way to help those that might be more on the shy side or more on the introverted side.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that, Melanie.
Great, thanks. And then one other last question is, if the job, this is from Gia, if the job posting has a hiring manager listed, is it appropriate to contact them directly?
Yeah, you can. And I would just, again, if you're sending them, if you're not connected with them, you're not going to be able to send a full message where you can attach your resume and, give, by the way, they're probably not going to read a message that's over, that's a lot of words, because they're just not going to. People just don't these days. So summarize and condense. But if you are sending that connection request, it's a very quick, I saw this job and I'm really excited about it. I did apply. I'd love to learn more. Would you be open to a brief call, or, just something like that? The other thing I wanted to mention, along the lines of if you're shy, or to Melanie's point around bringing a wingman or woman, is people don't always want to talk about work. And it seems like, well, of course, that's what we'll get to. But people generally, they want to talk about, you could start with the weather. You could start with, look, the Cubs are in town, or do you see the Sox game, or something, about current, like, not political, but, something kind of not fiery, current events. That those are the things that are conversation starters, and that will naturally move into a conversation. So don't feel like you have to go in. In fact, that's why it's a relationship focused, and people always love talking about themselves. So just asking them a question like, how did you get to where you are today? Or what do you recommend? They'll probably talk for 10 minutes. Any other questions?
I don't see any more right now.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to move on to, I'm showing this a little bit, if you had attended the value proposition event, and I see we're getting close on time, so I'm going to talk a little more quickly here. Please jump in with questions. As you are networking, I would really love for you to make sure that you have your pitch, your value proposition ready, because this is your chance to make an impression. Even though you want it to be conversational and you want to truly build that connection, they probably will ask you, well, what are you looking for? Or tell me a little bit about yourself. And this is your opportunity to really give your value proposition. And it should not be very long, but I put this, I always forget how to say this word. I think it's Ikagi. And it's really kind of this blend of your passion and your mission, your purpose, you know, what you can also be paid for, what you're good at, what you're skilled at. And so being able to articulate what your purpose is important and what you're looking for. Because if you tell them you're open to anything, it comes off as desperate. So don't say that. You want to be clear about probably about 15 to 20 seconds on what you've done in the past, 15 to 20 seconds on what you're currently doing or most recently have done, and then 15 to 20 seconds on where you're going. So have that clear and practice it. Record yourself on your phone, just listening to yourself. And everyone's their own worst critic, but just give yourself some grace, but also some constructive feedback, and go back and refine it and just have it ready. Okay. So here are some outreach templates that I like. So this would be more like an email. So maybe someone's introducing you. Very simple, short and sweet. Tell them how you became connected with them. Jane Doe shared your name with me as I pursue marketing roles. I'm very interested in XYZ company. Tell them why. I'd appreciate your career advice. So you are asking them. You could even switch this out and say, I'd love to hear, I see you're in this role. I'd love to hear how you got to where you are today. If you're open to sharing that, then this is it. You're giving a little bit of your background. This X years of experience doing Y. You can add a quick accomplishment or a value proposition. It's kind of like the problem that you solve. And then I would welcome the opportunity to have a virtual coffee chat or a call. Okay. Any questions on this? All right, we'll move on to a LinkedIn personalized connection request. Again, you have 200 characters if you're sending the connection request, if you're not already connected. So I like starting off in just something as simple of, oh, I see we're both in the XYZ space. Or if you went to the same, have an organization or university in common. I'm pursuing these roles. I'd love to learn more about your career path. Would you be open to a virtual coffee chat? So if you leave out that last piece, they're just going to accept the connection request and go on about their day. But if they see that last piece, oh, this person wants to connect with me, then they will respond. Okay. And if you have become connected through a mutual friend or colleague, definitely add that in, because that does go a long way. People trust other people that they know. Okay, and then I just added in a little bit about your value proposition, because again, I want you to be comfortable when they do ask you the question, tell me a little bit more about yourself, or what are you looking to do? So these are just some ideas. The other thing that's really great about networking is asking them their opinions. So, these are some companies that I've thought about. What are your thoughts? And they might be like, oh gosh, have you heard of this company? They're really growing. Or this company just spun off of this organization. You might want to check them out. So it's also, these networking conversations are just information gathering. And then think about ways that you can help them. So if there's anything that you can do for them, please, let them know that you're open to helping, because it should be mutually beneficial. And then always send a thank you after each interaction. Again, that's on your spreadsheet. So if you have that target organization spreadsheet and the people, go ahead and track, what if it's the person part of the spreadsheet, what organization are they in? How did you become connected with them? What the status update is, what the next action step is, and then any notes after you've reflected on your conversation. But send a thank you message. A lot of people don't, so you will stand out if you do. And then try to stay in touch. Think about an article. Oh, I found this article. Don't go overboard. But you can, in a couple of weeks, you could say, oh, I saw this article. It reminded me of our conversation. So that's a good way to stay in touch if there's no action step other than. All right. And then if you're networking with a potential hiring manager, I know that someone responded or asked a question about that. Do your homework before you have that conversation. So find out any job descriptions that they currently have open that you might be interested in, or that they've had in the past. Become familiar with their organization. Look at their website. Understand what their mission and value statements are. And then how the most important piece is how your strengths and skills can tie in. Maybe you want to have like a story ready in case they go there. So you don't want to lead with that necessarily, because again, the focus is on learning about them, building the relationship. But if it does come up, you do want to be prepared. You don't want to go in and say, oh, I haven't really looked, or I'm not really that familiar with it. So just do a little bit of homework before you have the call. We were going to do another breakup, but I see we're at 7:30, Melanie. So that was going to be where I wanted you to spend time. So maybe what I'd recommend, if you have some time today or tomorrow, just do some reflecting and start to build out your target organization sheet and think about who you may want to connect with on LinkedIn or otherwise. So that was really it. Melanie and Marissa, thank you for hosting me. I've really enjoyed this tonight and just helping people through their search and career. So here's my information if anyone would like any more information or just stay in touch with me. Melanie and Marissa, do you have anything else you'd want to close with tonight?
Sure. Sarah, I wanted a heartfelt thank you from the team at Next Group for joining us this evening. And thank you to everybody who joined us. I did include a link in the chat. If you enjoyed this workshop, we have other workshops that are coming up. And we'd love to see you at another workshop. I included the link to learn more about the events, and you can register right on that events page. And Sarah, just to confirm, Mary was very kind to ask, just to remind, will you feel comfortable sharing a version of the slides or some of the takeaways with some of those templates with everybody? And if so, I can make sure that gets out to folks, if not tomorrow, for sure, first thing on Monday.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think, Melanie, I probably just have to do a little tweak before you send them out, and then we'll be good to go.
That would be wonderful. Sarah and Marissa and I will hang on for a few minutes. But again, thank you to everybody for joining us this evening, and have a wonderful rest of the evening and the rest of your week. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Kelly, we see that you're still on. I don't know if you've walked away, but if you've got any questions, feel free to come off mute.